Welcome once again to Coding for All. This time around, we will be looking at type conversions in Python. Let's get right into it. When we talk of type conversions in Python, this is the process of converting the value of one data type into another data type. You convert the value of one data type into another data types. And in Python, we have two types of data type conversions. And these are the implicit and then the explicit type conversions. When we talk of the implicit type conversion, we are dealing with the type conversions that Python itself does without any human intervention or interaction. So let's see an example of that. So we have num int is equal to 1, 2, 3. This is a number, an integer, and then we have num flow 1.23. This is a float, right? Now what we want to do is we want to add these two numbers, right? Now in adding these two numbers, what happens is that we'll print the data type of each of these numbers, and then the value, then the type number of this last number. So when printed, we have our first printing giving out this output over here. The class is an integer. The second saying that the number flow, num underscore flow, is a float. Then the third print over here, the value of num new, which is this value, is 124.23, and then it is a float. Now one may ask, why is it that when these values were added, it is a float and not an integer? The reason being that if you are adding different data types, especially when you are adding an integer and the float, you realize that the float has values that are attached to them, like the 0.23. So assuming Python was to leave that value as an integer, then it means that we are going to have the value 124, meaning there will be a loss of data. So what Python does is that Python automatically converts the integer into a higher data type, being the float, so that there will be no loss of data. Hope that is understood. Python automatically, intentionally converts the integer when it is being added to a float into a float to be able to store data and prevent any loss of data. Alright, so this is just an example of an implicit data type conversion. Now let's move right into the explicit data type conversion. The explicit data type conversion is where an individual explicitly explicitly changes or converts a data type into another. So what we can do is, let's say we have these values. Let me edit this a bit. So let's say we have these values, right? Now I have num underscore int being 1, 2, 3, and then I have num underscore string str being 4, 5, 6. Now there's no way you'll be able to add this and get the required output you want. Let's print it and see. So the first print, what is it doing? It is giving us the type of num int being an integer over here. The next print is giving us the type of the num underscore str, which is a string over here. Now the num string is equal to 8 is where we intentionally convert our num string into what? A num int. So here we've converted the string value, the string type of this num string into an integer now. So we did what we call in Python typecasting. We have casted this integer data type on the string, converting the string value into an integer, right? So assuming we were supposed to print just the num string over here, we would lose value of these quotes around the 4, 5, 6, and we'll have just the digits, right? Now, because we have now changed the value from string into an integer, now we can do the additions and then add and sum the numbers. So now when the numbers were summed up or added, we had a 573, and then the data type now is an integer. So let's print let's just print the num string which we had over here, right? So realize it is 456 over here, right? It is no more a string, which is this. It is now an integer, which is this. And when we summed it up, and we had a 573, and it's an integer. Now, assuming we were supposed to add this num string as a string to the integer, what do we get? So now let's what we want to do is let's just assign 1 over here, right? And then what we want to do is we come to the additions part and then assign 1 over here, right? Now the easiest thing we could do in order not to mix the data up, what we can do is, let me comment this and then let's run it. Unsupported operand types for an addition, right? Integer and string. What it's trying to say is, what you can't use the addition operator or the addition sign to add a string to an integer. You can't sum up strings and an integer. You can't sum up strings and an integer. So we values this way for you to get the needed output or the required output you need. You are supposed to explicitly typecast your data to be able to get the data type that you need to be able to make whatever operations that you need to do in Python. This is all for today. This is type conversions in Python, and we'll be moving on to our next episode in this series. Let's meet next time, same time. Subscribe to this channel, Coding for All, and we'll love to see you again. Bye for now.